Now, South Africa faces massive infrastructure challenges from roads to water to electricity. There has been a lack of maintenance. This is an issue faced across the continent. Now, the DVAC Infrastructure Conference hopes to address these issues. Gauteng Roads Infrastructure MEC Jacob Mamabolo spoke at the meeting. He says suppliers with the best prices are not always the best choice. Let's find out what this means from eNCA's senior reporter Aviwa Mtila, who is there. Aviwa, just give us more information on what this conference is about.
Well, Maseko, this conference is looking at the future of infrastructure in the African continent, and of course you'd understand how infrastructure directly correlates to much needed economic ties, in fact, and investments coming into the continent. But of course, there have been several issues that have been raised inside here in terms of the hindrances that are a stumbling block in bringing in those investments and infrastructure. I'd understand even some of the procurement models mentioned by the MEC Jacob Mamabolo in terms of giving quality jobs to the infrastructure. But I actually want to touch now with the MEC of Transport in Gauteng, MEC Jacob Mamabolo. Thank you for joining us at eNCA. You were delivering a keynote address just earlier on and speaking of the SA procurement model and some of the challenges with it. I'm hoping maybe you can touch, for the benefit of our viewer, with some of the key challenges with the procurement model in the country.
Well, one of the issues that we appreciate about this type of conversations is bringing government and the private sector closer so that we don't just partner on investments and making money available, but we also partner on, skills transfer, skills sharing, sharing of knowledge and practices. Now, one of the issues that we are starting to see, which is becoming a pattern and a trend, is that we have got service providers that are supposed to deliver infrastructure failing to complete projects. And many of them we see is because they abandon projects, either because they can see they're not going to make a profit, but also perhaps because they've got financial pressures. They don't have enough or strong balance sheet to finance the projects. And sometimes issues of corruption with change in scope in order to make money. The reality of the matter is our procurement model says we need the lowest bidder. So you must be as cheap as possible because government can't pay high prices for services that can be done in a cheap way. Now, some of these service providers are starting to look at this issue of low price in such a way that they deliver, they give the low price and then they end up winning the bid. But when they have to proceed now to deliver the project, they end up abandoning it because they were targeting lower price, sign a contract, but at the end, they are unable to carry over the challenges that goes with financing the project. Of course, government must pay them in 30 days, but if you have undercosted your project just to win the tender, there's no way that you are going to deliver the project. And we are seeing most of them are abandoning projects, abandoning sites, they're unable to complete, they run away. And we have got to really appeal to the private sector that be honest and frank about the real cost of the project. Don't try to play games with a lower price model because it's going to catch up with you. So that is an issue that those who are bidding need to look at, but also ourselves as government, we need to combine lower pricing with sustainable capacity to deliver projects, because the number of people, especially with the challenges that have come up with COVID-19, most of them don't have enough muscle. So if you're just looking at the lower price, lower tender, lower bid, some of them completely abandon sites. And that is impacting capital formation. It's impacting, the total stock of capital assets that we need for long-term economic productivity and sustainability.
And what about the consequences then, MEC, given that government is aware of what's happening with these tenders? Are there sterner consequences? Because, of course, quality is compromised. As you mentioned, the William Nicol Road that now needs to be rebuilt because of the poor quality that it was initially built in.
Yes, precisely that. Those who go for the lower price, we see that they cut corners. You know, they take shortcuts because they need to make a profit, and it was not built into their bidding model. So what we have done in the province to deal with that issue is that we have created what we call the Compliance Office for Transport Infrastructure. The Compliance Office main mandate and term of reference is to make sure that we hold accountable the service providers that we appoint in terms of the contracts that they sign. The role of the Compliance Office is to enforce the rule of law, to ensure that the contracts that people sign are worth the paper they are written on, and those who cannot deliver our projects, we must blacklist them. We must make sure that the directors of those companies are blacklisted because they come and take chances. They, take the work that we do not seriously, take it for a ride and try their luck. So we have put the Compliance Office to make sure that quality is not compromised, the timelines are not unnecessarily expanded, but also to make sure that there are no cost overruns, because the people who go for the lowest price end up bringing variations and changes in scope in order to make profit. But when they were submitting the bid, they went for the lower price and they were not honest in pricing. So the Compliance Office is precisely to say, if you give us a price and you sign a contract on that price, you cannot later come and try to maneuver with scope variations now that you realize you're not going to make money. So the private sector must be very, very much aware that we are not going to accept maneuvering in pricing of their tenders with the hope that they can change scope as and which they wish, and more often rely on corruption to grease the hands of those that must give them new scope. So to that extent in the province, we're going to be very tough. We're not going to accept people who undermine the contracts that they sign, because capital formation to stimulate economic activity, long-term productivity of the economy, and just for the benefits of the people shouldn't be compromised by shoddy and dodgy service providers.
And just talking about pricing, MEC, will there be anything done about the hospital you mentioned while you did your stint, 6-month stint as health MEC, where the price jumped from 50 million to R500 million, with that hospital still being a white elephant not being used?
Well, the issues of the hospital in Carletonville that has increased the price very exponentially, that matter, the province has dealt with it. It has been referred to SIU. SIU is working on it, and there will be full accountability. You know, in the province, once we pick up that there are issues that relates to corruption, high cost manipulation of our tenders, the province is doing an excellent job in making sure that the law takes its course. So to that extent, the SIU is looking into the matter and other matters that have been referred to them, and I think that matter is receiving attention.
Okay, thank you very much. MEC Jacob Mamabolo, the Transport MEC in Gauteng, who was largely speaking on just the rot, especially around some of these tenders, the procurement processes, just the inflation of prices here, just on the sidelines of the Africa Infrastructure Conference that looks to the future of infrastructure in the continent.
All right, senior reporter Aviwem Dila in Sandton with the MEC for roads and infrastructure here in Gauteng. Now let's take